right, good evening, everybody. I call this meeting of the Prosper Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that all of the board members are present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. Our first order on the agenda tonight is to go into executive session. Can I have a motion to do that, please? Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Second. Mr. Beavers, all in favor? All right, we will recess and be back. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. We are going to start with a public hearing on the proposed budget for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. That is a public hearing. We're going to have a presentation on the budget and then invite comments before we move into the general meeting. All right, Ms. Fulmer.
Good evening. I know we have a packed agenda tonight, so most of the budget items are very similar to the budget that we saw presented in July. The only significant change was the certified value. So those did change our revenue split between state and local. So we're going to go through this a little bit, and it's going to look very familiar. I think it's on. I'm sorry for that. To the screen. Okay, looking at maintenance and operations in the general fund, we have the same enrollment projection as last month, 21,700. And we're going to see some charts in a little bit to show us where we are year to date. The nice thing about having it on the 23rd is that we already have over a week of school under our belt, so we can really look at the enrollment and see where it's tracking before we adopt the budget. Property valuation, 12 billion, and that's with certified. And 18% increase over prior year. It was certified on July 25th. You can see the split between Collin and Denton County for a total of $12,067,000. Our enrollment as of last Friday was 21,365. So at this early in the year, we are tracking along very well to meet our budget projection of 21,700. Maintenance and operations tax rate. So the budget is prepared using tax rate compression that was instituted in the 86th legislature 2 years ago. This is the third year of tax rate compression. As you can see, over the last 3 years, it's decreased 21 cents from $1.17. It was very stable for a very long time at $1.17. Last year was 99 cents. This next year, 96.03, a 3-cent reduction. So if we just look at the revenue by source, 126 million in local, 73 million for next year in state funding. Federal, we talked a little bit last time about how our projection for next year in federal was going to be less. We had 700,000. We've gotten some new information, and we increased that projection 202,000, which we're going to show is going to translate through to the total budget that we'll see in a little bit. Okay, the revenue portion. Again, it says new law, but this is now current law. At the time, we had the legislative session this last year. Total for the revenue before athletics and TRS on behalf, $201,457,000. Athletics, we add in separately because on the monthly financials, we report those to you in different. What you'll see for adoption is going to embed the athletics and the general fund all together, along with TRS on behalf. The reason we pull out TRS on behalf is because we book a revenue and a matching expense. It is a non-cash transaction, but it's just something that the state requires us to book expenses for TRS on our behalf, but it does not go through the district. Total budget revenue, $212,187,000. One of the things, the key assumptions I want to point out here is that the legislature is in its second special session. There are some items on the called agenda that relate to tax rate compression. We haven't factored anything in because there's nothing yet that they've decided. We don't anticipate there's anything that's going to affect this, but if we do, we will definitely let you know. One thing too, the switch to current year values from 2 years ago means that a key piece of our state funding is the comptroller's value, T2. We won't know that number until January of 2022. And so that's one thing. It's a large, we have an estimate that we do based on TEA's formula, but we won't know for sure that the state funding is right on the money until half the year is over. So just want to point that out. Expenditure projections. These look a lot like what you saw last month. Really want to highlight elementary schools. $16.1 million of this budget is for new staff for growth. Our growth is considerable. We are still the fastest growing school district in the state of Texas, and so we have to add staff at a very rapid pace. Compensation. The additional compensation of $7.8 million to increase. We're going to see a slide in a little bit that talks about that, but we were able to increase all of the pay scales for our employees district-wide. That was something the fast growth allotment really allowed us to do, and so it was just a very good win for employees. Overall, $220 million, $840,000 expenditures. So our planned use of fund balance is slightly less than last month, $8.6 million. Last month it was $8.7 million. The difference is the increased federal revenue. Looking at compensation, we touched on it just a little bit. The increase of the pay scale, 7.8, and the growth, 16.1. And again, you're going to see a chart showing us the object code breakdown in just a little bit right now that explains that overall, 85% of our overall budget is personnel. It's our human capital, and that's what drives the budget from year to year, especially when you're opening new campuses and you have the growth of staffing those additional buildings. Expenditures by function. Wanted to point out on this one that the debt structure is zero, but we talked a little bit about we're going to have a budget amendment in September, October. That's going to pull that out of function 11 and put it into 71, and that's a new GASB pronouncement. We don't have a choice on that one. And so looking at fund balance, our estimated fund balance is $89 million at the end of the current year, which is 49% of expenditures. That is a very strong, healthy fund balance, which when a district that's growing this fast is absolutely essential to make sure that we are set and we can move very quickly during the fiscal year if anything unanticipated happens, which it typically does in Prosper, which is excess growth over what we planned. The $89 million already includes a reduction for the one-time use of fund balance that the board previously approved last year. Okay, that kind of goes over maintenance and operations. It was kind of quick, but a lot of that really, you guys saw that, and we've talked about that before. We look a little bit at the INS fund. This is what services the debt. The 50 cents on the tax rate makes the debt service payments twice a year. Very stable debt tax rate of 50 cents. Tax collections. This includes our August 3rd sale. And you'll see on the financials, we're starting elementary 15 and high school 3. The $200 million sale is going to fund the start of those projects. And so this debt payment for 21-22 and the budget includes that sale. Child Nutrition Fund. We only have to adopt these 3 funds by law, so this is why we choose these 3. We have a new contract this year with Aramark to run the Child Nutrition Funds. So we are, the Department of Agriculture has requested that the contract include the concessions operation, so that's new this year that you'll see that. Right now we have it embedded in a revenue and an expense. So total revenue projection 7.7. expenditures 7.4. So the projection is for a slight result of operations to be positive. What we're going to see for budget adoption later in the agenda is this summary right here. So you have the general funds, child nutrition, and debt service all on one sheet. And then the budget by function going across. At the very bottom, you'll see some small numbers there. These are required disclosures by the tax code, education code, forgive me. Publication of legally required newspaper notices. Prior year, we spent $2,600 on those. And then advocacy expenditures, that's been referred to as lobbying. So some of the organizations are giving us this amount that they anticipate that they might spend on something, which is really advocacy at the legislature on behalf of school districts. And this, again, is just a summary, a different way of looking at everything that we've presented to you today. Next steps in September, tax rate adoption, and then the budget amendments that we spoke of already. That concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you very much. We've all obviously had this in our packets. Any questions on the budget? And we will be voting on it later in the agenda. Are there any public comments? Anybody would like to come up and talk to us, their thoughts on the budget? You're not here for the budget.
Oh, wait. Yep.
Okay.
Actually, I have a question. How much federal money are we taking, or are we planning on taking any more federal money? Is that an okay question to ask?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
The budget that we saw presented, I'm sorry, I should talk to you, does not include any of the federal ESSER funds. I don't know if you've heard them referred to as the ESSER funds, but those are the, apologies, the TEA puts out these acronyms, but none of the federal funds, we did talk about them in July, but none of them are embedded in this
Right.
presentation tonight.
So none of it's being reported right now,
It's not in the adopted budget.
but it's in a budget for Prosper ISD.
Yes,
You're
it
saying
will
adopted.
be.
That's fancy language for me.
I'm sorry, the jargon is my apologies. Yeah, so the ESSER funds, there's several different types, tranches of the federal funds, and we have applied for those, and so when we get notified that the TEA has granted our grant application, then we'll be able to start spending those funds, and they'll be budgeted.
So why are we applying for federal money? For those funds, right? Do we know
Yeah.
why we're applying for federal? And with all due, I don't want to be rude
Okay.
or disrespectful, I'm just trying
Okay.
to find out.
I've just been informed, this is a great time for a comment, but not for questions. So, sorry about that. Sorry about that. We try to get monies to help our kids, so. Thank you. All right, well, thank you. With that, I need a motion to close the public forum. I'll make the motion. Make a motion.
I would like to comment, since we can't have questions answered.
Oh, okay,
that
sure.
The presentation clearly stated that fiscal year over year, there was a $21,700,000 increase in federal funding that was being adopted into this relative to the 1.3-ish million that was coming from the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A motion on the floor.
Do we use Robert's rules? Is that the guidance that we use for these types of meetings? Because I thought for Robert's rules, if it was public, then you could answer questions. Please correct me, parliamentarian. But I thought with Robert's
Yeah.
rules, you could answer questions
I think
during.
the way this public. Thank you. We got a motion to adjourn public comment. Second. All in favor? All right, we will now move into general session. I'm going to open up the general session with our invocation. Will you please pray with me? Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to gather. We thank you for the responsibility that you have given us in this district to watch over and care for and educate the children of our district. Father, I pray for the staff that you have put in Prosper ISD to carry out these duties. I pray for their care, their protection. I pray for their strength and wisdom and endurance. Father, I just pray for us tonight as we deliberate the matters before us, that you will give us wisdom and discernment. Father, I pray that we will operate in a spirit of kindness, spirit of humility, and Father, that you will just oversee the things that we're discussing tonight in this board. Thank you for the people in this community. I thank you for their interest in the way that we're serving their kids. Father, I just pray that you will do this all tonight. Bless us with your peace and joy. In your son's name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. You want to go ahead?
So very excited to have Asa Bodie back with us. She is a student at Rockville High School, and several years ago, some of you may have remembered if you were here, that she went to the National Spelling Bee competition, and that's national, not just state. And so we were cheering her on from afar, but I'm very excited to have her back with us today because this summer she competed in the HOSA competition, which is an international level competition, and she was named the International Medical Terminology Spelling Bee Champ. I know you had the spelling bee prior, so which set of words are harder, the medical terminology or the spelling bee?
I mean, I don't know what to pick and choose, but if I had to, I would say maybe the medical ones.
Good answer.
More names.
Yes.
There's more names than medical.
Yes. What I love about NASA too is we formed a relationship back when you were at Reynolds in what, 8th grade, 7th grade when that happened. And so she gladly reached out to me this summer and said, I just want to let you know I've won. Hey, are you available in August for an award? So congratulations. We have an awesome award. Would anyone like to give her a word to spell? I'm just Congratulations.
We have one more presentation, and I'd like to invite Chief Chad Vessels to the front, as well as Officer Scott Barrett.
So those of you who maybe watched the video of a few minutes with Dr. Ferguson, I spoke about Officer Scott Barrett. He serves Winsong Elementary on the west side of our district. And I did not give the accurate information. Mr. Miller was like, you said the cafeteria was a classroom. I'm like, oh. I was like, I'll get that corrected on Monday night. So he was actually going into, our officers actually go into our classrooms to talk to our students and inform them about police work and what they do. And so Officer Barrett was making his way into a kindergarten classroom. He walks in, he finds the teacher performing the Heimlich maneuver on a child who was choking. And the teacher was not successful. The child started turning Barrett was not hitting her. So if you're hearing that rumor, our officers are not hitting kids. Just saving her life. So we have this very nice award, and I will read it to you. Prosper Independent School District Life Saving Award presented to Officer Scott Barrett for his fast thinking and swift professional action on August 12, 2021. We also have an award for you that is framed, and for those of you who know anything about the fire service or the police service, it's very customary that officers or firefighters receive life-saving awards when something of this nature happens. And so we want to make sure that we present you with the correct medallion as a life-saving award. So I'll let Chief present you with that. So Officer Barrett tomorrow will wear this medal at Windsong. Will all of you kids will be like, do you run that? Congratulations, thank you again so much. Thank you.
Great. Fabulous. All right, we're moving to the open forum section of the agenda. Before the public comment, all public comments at a regularly scheduled meeting should be limited to school district governance and operations. If you have a specific concern related to an employee of the district or a specific student, you're encouraged to utilize the district's grievance procedures provided in board policies F&G, DGBA, or GF Local. Please note that the board cannot comment on any item that is not on the board agenda for this meeting. Pursuant to Prosper ISD Board Policy BED Local, audience participation in a board meeting is limited to the portion of the meeting designated to receive public comment in accordance with that policy. At all other times during a board meeting, the audience shall not enter into discussion or debate on matters being considered by the board unless requested by the presiding officer. When necessary for effective meeting management or to accommodate large numbers of individuals wishing to address the board, the presiding officer may make adjustments to public comment procedures, including establishing an overall time limit for public comment and adjusting the time allotted to each speaker. However, no individual should be given less than 1 minute to make comments. We have 40-something people signed up, so tonight we're going to set the overall time limit for public comment to that number of meetings, asking that each member who comes to speak on this list will be given 1 minute to make their comments. We will try to get you to queue up so that we can get through this. I will read off 4 or 5 names in a row. If you could queue those up, that would be fabulous. Finally, I think it's important to address the board's expectations and hopes for decorum during this public comment time. While the board certainly encourages members of our community to speak about any school governance or operations topic during public comment, and while we know that no one approaches the board unless they care deeply and passionately about the matter they bring before us, we ask that each speaker conduct him or herself in a polite and civil way while addressing the board. The board will show each speaker courtesy and respect while he or she is speaking, and we simply ask that each speaker show the same to the board. Should any speaker disregard this request and become a disruption to our public meeting, I'll be forced to prematurely end that speaker's time at the podium. Thank you in advance for observing these expectations, and the Board of Trustees appreciates your active participation in the school district. So we're going to get started. I've got the list of people here. I think it is worth noting that because we obviously have a lot of people signed up for masks, no mask mandate, that sort of thing. There is no mask mandate on the agenda. There is no consideration. We will not be discussing or voting on any kind of a mask mandate. We're certainly going to have an update from our COVID subcommittee, but that is not an agenda item, just for those of you that are going to be coming up here to speak to us. Again, as I said before, if there's any way that anybody can nominate a speaker that's going to be speaking on the same topic, can help us get through this, that would be great. But otherwise, I'm going to start calling out names, and we would love for you to sort of queue up if you would. And Mr. Beavers is going to keep our time, and away we go. Fair enough? Our first comment, I'd like to get Kristen Etheridge to speak, followed by Sankar Vasanth and Vikek. I can't read that one. I can't read your handwriting, I'm afraid. Thate, maybe? And then I don't even know what this one is. What do you think that is? Iodine? Iodine? Can we get those four kind of queued up? And we'll start with Miss Etheridge.
No pressure being number one here
There
tonight.
you go.
Right? My name is Kristen Etheridge, and I'm a parent of 2 students at Light Farms Elementary and at Rogers Middle School. To begin with, I want to thank each and every one of you for giving our PISD children and families continued choice with regard to masks. I hesitated sharing this at first because it's my daughter's personal information, but when I talked to her, she felt strongly that I bring this to you all. My daughter is in 8th grade at Rogers. She has anxiety and she cannot function in a mask. They are absolutely detrimental to her mental health. She chose to wear a face shield last year because she could breathe more effectively in it. Unfortunately, she was bullied daily for wearing it, with other students going so far as to call her face shield girl in classes instead of referring to her by her name. This is a girl who was in the dual language program, an officer on the Eagle Emeralds drill team, and was selected to be part of Hope Squad. And the bullying she experienced last year almost broke her. She's being treated by a physician for her anxiety, where we were previously able to manage it at home, and we are in the process of getting her a 504.
Tom? Thank you, Ms. Etheridge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How do you pronounce your first name?
Vasant.
Vasant. Thank you, Mr. Sankar.
Okay, good evening, members of the board. I'm a proud parent of a kindergartner, and I'm going to talk about the emotional stress this pandemic has on everyone, including teachers, and particularly families that have special need kids. There are many kids who receive special education services like speech and occupational therapy and social skills help from school. The most important reason for these kids not opting to attend in-person classes, or they could be immunocompromised, lacking on the mentioned social and communication skills. These kids might need help from the staff for most of the regular chores, even during the normal times. In the current pandemic situation, with no mask and vaccine mandate, and kids under 12 being unvaccinated, they are easily prone to infection and may also infect others. These kids are missing out on the services as there is no other option to receive them, and they don't have access to any of the special education materials as kids are being automatically unenrolled from school.
Thank you, Mr. Sankar. After Iodine, I'm assuming that's how you said it. I apologize if I'm missing that. Well, I'd like Scott Moore, Andy Ray, and Allison Minier. Minor? Minier. Okay, Vivek? Vivek?
This is Vivek.
Vivek.
Starts now?
Please.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm Vivek Tatte, and my kids are in Prosper ISD, and I thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak here. Like many of us here, I'm here to request the board members to please consider providing teacher-led virtual learning option for our kids, especially for those kids who are unvaccinated and not eligible to get the vaccine at this time. And we have raised our concern previously with the board and came to know that Prosper ISD does not have funding for virtual learning this year. Now, all the ISDs are in the similar funding situation, but with the current situation of Delta variant, ISDs like Frisco, Denton, Dallas, Richardson ISDs, they have revisited their decisions and took decision in the best interest of their students and staff. And I recently read about elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund. I think all the ISDs get this fund. I have also learned one of the ISDs decided to use this fund. So I request to all the board members to consider virtual learning option.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Iodine? Are you Iodine?
I'm sorry, I'm Allison.
Oh, no, I've got somebody from Iodine.
Spell it, maybe?
I can't. I mean, if I could read it, I could spell it.
I-A-D-I-N?
I-A-R-D-I-N?
Or maybe it's
Anybody?
Fardin?
What is your name?
Fardeen,
Fardin.
F-A-R-D, okay. What's your surname?
Q-U-A-Z-I.
Thank you. Time to start.
Respected board, Prosper ISD board members, thank you so much. Please accept my sincere gratitude for giving me an opportunity to speak. So today, as I stand to speak here,
Just before coming to the meeting, I found there was a COVID positive case in my kid's classroom, which is very concerning. So here today, I am not as a representative or anything. I am standing here as a father of my kid who wants to keep my kid and my family alive, to pass safely this pandemic situation. I know, like previous couple of my speakers, they talk about how important it is for keeping our unvaccinated kids safe. They are the future of this country. They are the ones who are kind of, specifically the elementary kids who are like innocent. They don't even know what's going on around, why we are keeping them masked up, why we are sending them to school like in such a situation. So in view of all this, I just like to I had a lot of things to speak, but because of time constraint, I'll just switch to coming to the topic of virtual learning, which is specifically what we are proposing or probably requesting all the board members to please consider this as a sincerest and earnest request. So I know we have received funding.
Thank you, Fardeen. Sorry.
1 minute is over.
I'm saying thank you. Thank you. Okay, we've got Scott Moore, Andy Ray, Allison Minier, and then I can skip Scott Moore?
That's me. You can skip it.
Okay, Scott Moore. Thank you for that. And so Andy Ray, Allison Minier, okay, then Braddock Jones and Angela Moss.
Hello, my name is Dr. Andrew Roy, and I've been practicing in the state of New Jersey for over 12 years and in the state of Texas. I have 3 boys that attend Prosper ISD school system, and I'm here to encourage the board to uphold their decision to give parents the right to choose for kids to wear a mask or not. My family moved here from New Jersey, and I represent a large group of people here in Prosper, like me, that have fled their home states because they're fed up with draconian mandates. We settled here in North Texas, where we believe that we have the freedom and medical freedom and the right to choose what is right for our children. There are inherent risks to wearing masks, and where there is risk, there must be choice. I have seen firsthand in New Jersey and New York how one mandate leads to massive government overreach, and allowing one mandate is a slippery slope to open the door for more, and I urge the board to stand firm in their decision and the right to choose. If you want your child to wear a mask in school, aren't you glad you live in a free country where you're allowed to wear a mask in school? Well, I'm glad that I live in a free country where I can choose not to. No one is talking about removing your choice. Please do not remove mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Allison Minier, please.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Allison Minier. I'm a mother of 2 children and a Prosper ISD parent. Following the email sent last week by Superintendent Ferguson and Principal Miller, I went straight to the Winsong Elementary website to take a look at the COVID reporting. Surely I expected to see some pretty high numbers that would necessitate a blast email to all parents, but what I found was two children who had reportedly been diagnosed with COVID, one of which was a preschooler, so 1 elementary student. I'm not grasping why the district found it appropriate to send an alarmist email as if our children were facing some sort of imminent threat. We need to pause and ask ourselves, what could masks possibly bring to the table when the survival rate of this virus for children is quite literally 99.999%? As parents, this pandemic is something we shoulder for our kids, not continually burden them with. The path forward is simple. It's time to take personal responsibility. One size fits all is a miserably failing approach to take in this situation. And how did we not learn that after all this transpired over the past year? A mask mandate simply robs Peter to pay Paul.
Thank you, Ms. Minier. I appreciate your coming up. Braddock Jones, Angela Moss, Kristen Etheridge, we get you twice? Okay, you've already finished. I thought that was you. And then Rob Manello. So Braddock Jones, Angela Moss, Rob Manello.
Hi, I'm Braddock Jones. I'm a sophomore that attends Rock Hill High School, and I would like to share an experience and hope that no other students would have to be put through this learning environment. On the first day of school, as soon as I walked into my classroom, there were 2 unidentifiable flags that were being flown in replace of the Texas and American flag. I do not believe that political or sexual orientation flags should be flown in the classroom. And when I was asked to introduce myself, I was asked to, or made to introduce myself by my pronouns, and this made me very uncomfortable. And I do not believe that anyone else should be put through this learning environment. It was very uncomfortable for me, and I would like to share this experience to help others understand how uncomfortable I felt.
Thank you.
molecular biology. My area of expertise is in host microbe interactions. I'm here to ask the board, first I'd like to thank the board for all of your efforts this past year. I'd like to ask you to respectfully reconsider the mask mandate, just temporarily until children in grades K through 6 or K through 5 are old enough to get vaccinated. Thank you.
Please, everybody get the chance to speak.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to say?
Thank you, sorry about that. I do think it's important that we give everybody an opportunity to speak, okay? We ask for civil discourse. Thank you. Mr. Manello, followed by Coffee Anderson and Chris Petnaro? Okay, there you go. Let's go, Mr. Manello.
He's in the overflow room. We're trying to get him over here.
Okay. While we wait on Mr. Manello, can we go ahead and have Coffee Anderson speak?
Go ahead, sir.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Thank y'all so much for your service to this community. We appreciate it. This is a difficult situation for y'all and us. Land of the free, home of the brave. The freedom, the opportunity is because of choice. I talked to my granddaddy when he wasn't allowed to choose what water fountain he could use. Come on now. Land of the free, because of the brave. I've seen mamas bury their sons and daughters for these freedoms. I'm going to ask you for that choice for my babies. They're here, we're here. We planted our roots here. That freedom of choice is what makes America beautiful. If people want someone to choose for them, go to Venezuela. You can go to Cuba. But in the land of the free, home of the brave, and for those that have served it, as you're serving now, please keep the choice open, because we want that and we deserve that in the greatest country on earth.
Thank
God
you,
bless
sir.
you.
Appreciate it. Do we have Rob Manello yet? No? Okay, Chris,
Petzinaro.
say it again?
Petzinaro.
Petzinaro. Go ahead, Chris.
Good evening, everybody. I want to thank you for giving my family and I a place to seek refuge. We left California last year. I didn't even let my kids go to the first day of school. And I just want to remind everybody in this room that forcing a child to wear a mask against their will in light of ridiculous information that's being thrown left and right is child abuse. And I will never allow my child to wear a mask. Now, we went over fiscal budgets tonight. It's very simple. In California, when I pulled my kids on the first day of school, it was automatically $34 grand that left their operating budget. Here was very simple math. You have 21,700 students. You have $210 million in budget. It's 10 grand per student. The watershed will be very quick if you guys start forcing us to do what other school districts are forcing parents to do. And I'm not saying you guys will, but Houston ISD and everybody else going against the governor, this is America. We will stand for freedom. We will stand for truth. And the only thing I will fear, my children will fear, is God. So God bless you all. Keep America free.
We have Mr. Manello.
Run outside, it's not that.
Okay,
Okay.
there he is. Rob Manello.
Hi.
Mr. Manello?
Minuta, yes, they spelled it wrong, sorry.
I'm sorry, can you speak into the microphone? I'm sorry.
Sure, yes, Robert Minuta, 120 Gray Lane, Prosper. Thank you for this time to be up here. I'd just like to say that, like...
We have a minute, by the way, you probably weren't in here for that, so just to let you know.
Yes,
Sorry.
I'm aware.
Okay.
Like the other gentleman that spoke, my wife and I and children moved here from the Northeast, New York and New Jersey, literally fleeing the totalitarian state that's been established. And it's because of this slippery slope that we're headed down here. You know, you can't appease everyone. It's just absolutely unfair that I would move across the country to a state that claims to be don't mess with Texas, and here we are fighting for our freedoms. Shall I remind you that this is insane. I just am appalled that I move across the country to the last stand state here, literally, quite literally, and we're dealing with the same issues that we have in a Northeast New York, New Jersey, where it's a failed state, and we've had our rights revoked, and you should be ashamed of yourselves that you would even consider these mandates.
Appreciate your call for Sam. I got behind Janelle Davis, Amy Lancaster, I know Amy Lancaster, Christine Chipinelli, and Mike King. Get those four lined up. Janelle Davis, please.
Good evening. My name is Janelle Davis, and my address is Public Record. I came here to speak on agenda item number 9, which unfortunately, the agenda isn't particularly specific about what the COVID subcommittee intends to report on, which makes it hard to comment. And on that note, I will just mention two things to you all: perception and transparency. When I tell a client in court not to answer a question, it looks like you're hiding something. When I tell a client in a hearing it's not time for that, it looks like you're hiding something. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're doing the best you can, but the perception. So let me get back to my original comments. I want to encourage you to continue to stand by your decision to allow mass choice in our district, despite the pressure you may feel from some. You have my complete support in that regard, along with the support of the Prosper Citizens Group PAC and at least 773 individuals who have signed a petition to continue to allow mass choice in Prosper. A copy of that petition was emailed to you yesterday, along with dozens of medical, reliable sources that talk about the lack of effectiveness of masks and the harm they do to our children. Thank you for allowing.
Amy Lancaster, I've been out in Prosper for 23 years. I'm disgusted by what you guys are allowing into our district. And some of you I know personally, and you know the Lord Jesus Christ. I hope you're speaking with him, because we are going to have to answer for this. Those of you who know him. Those of you who don't, well, we all know the end of that story. Those of you that are behind me, the only way to fix this is take the control away from them. Control is in your pocket. Take it away from them. Keep your children home. They don't get paid. Guess what happens when businesses lose money? People get fired. So let's just take away the control, put it in our hands. They can't seem to figure out how to do this correctly. It was obvious what you did last year. Governor Abbott ends the mask mandate, and you guys keep it on. You keep these children covered up for no reason. It doesn't work. And then you have what's just LGBT, whatever all this stuff is going on. You got flags, and you think that's okay? You know it's not. You know it's not. It is not okay. Biblically, it is not okay. It is a sin. Take it out of our schools. Our children don't need this trash.
Thank you, Amy. Christine Chipinelli, Mike King, Mackenzie Berglund, and Eric Rice, please.
Hi, I'm Christine Chipinelli. So I want to read to you the observations from a teacher in an elementary school that wrote to me. She said, "I want to express the incredible delight and fulfillment that I felt being with kids in the building again this past 2 weeks. The tone that was set by having the choice to wear a mask changed the learning environment significantly from last year. You could feel it in the air. It was palpable. Kids were jubilant again, and teachers were able to focus on the job that they were hired to do. Mandating masks on the faces of everyone stole so much from us as a school community last year. We need to get what was stolen from us back. We need to get it back for our learners and back for our educators. This year, we've gotten to focus on the joy of being here with friends, the joy of reading amazing literature, and the joy of having meaningful discussions about our days. There was genuine enjoyment in learning. We did try last year to not let the masks be a focus, but they just were. So this week, though, they were all free to give attention to our kids and their education without distraction. Having the freedom to choose whether to mask or not gave the building a new feeling of contentment that was completely absent last year."
Mike King, yes or no?
So thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to talk to what are the risks for our kids, right? We're talking about these masks. Why do we need them? Are we talking about a bug that has a 15% mortality rate? No. Out of the 4.6 million cases that have been reported by states, a mortality rate of 0.03%. Okay? Of hospitalizations of those kids, 1.9% of reporting states. So remember those numbers here in just a second, because I want to talk about your mask mandate from the 2018-2019 flu season. Remember that? You didn't have one. I find it ridiculous that we're sitting here talking about a possible mask mandate again when the CDC said in that year almost 500 kids lost their lives to flu. And that is still more than the children that have lost their lives to COVID since this pandemic began. So there is no reason to have a mask mandate. Your politically expedient choice is already in place. Let them choose. Nobody's taking away their right to wear a mask. Don't take our right to not wear a mask. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. I remind the audience there is no conversation about a mask mandate on the agenda tonight, but I appreciate your comments. Mackenzie Berglund, Eric Rice, Stephanie Razor, and Samantha Kim, please.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Berglund, and my address is public record. As a mom, my purpose in life is to protect my children, to teach them to stand for our flag and kneel for the cross. It is not the board's role to overrule Governor Abbott's mandate or to even bring up the topic of forced masks for children. You all took away our right to choose last school year. Let's not forget that. I previously voted for a few of you standing before me because you backed the same beliefs that I did. You looked me right in the eye and you lied to my face multiple times last year as well as this year. Please don't do it again with these forced mandates. I ask you as a mom to go back to what your campaign stood for and vote against a mask mandate. My son has speech therapy struggles, and wearing a mask for a teacher does not help him learn whatsoever. You are ruining our children's lives if you put this back in place. We're not trying to take your right away to wear a mask. Wear it. That makes you feel safe. Do it. But it's our responsibility as our parents to choose that for our children, to choose that for ourselves. I am not afraid. God
Thank you,
is the
Ms.
number
Berglund.
one
I
person in
appreciate
our
it.
lives.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Rice, Mrs. Razor, Samantha Kim, and Chancellor Wecker? Sorry, something like that. Huecker. Okay, Mr. Rice, sorry.
Thank you all for your time this evening. It's always ironic that we have discussions about education and intelligence, which leads to learning through the brain. The most important ingredient to the brain is oxygen. So it's kind of odd that we sit and talk in an educational forum that we don't want our kids to have excess oxygen into their brains. Of course we do. The mask mandates should go. Not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here more to talk about critical race theory and how I do not want to see that in my school district. Anyone who's ever read an actual history book can see a Marxist takeover occurring through the use of critical theory. The only thing they did was add the word race. Read a history book, learn your lessons. And I would say to take the mask mandates off because it's less of a chance of being struck by lightning, except I'm afraid that a third of the community would run out and buy lightning rods to put on their children.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Stephanie Razor.
Hello, my name's Stephanie Razor. My address is public record. I'm also Collin County GOP Precinct Chair 29. I'm here to ask for everybody in this room to take a deep breath and realize we are all standing here because we care about our children. No one has a monopoly on that, whether you're for masks or you're not. We're all here because we care about our children, and this us against them has got to stop. We all want what's best for our children. If that's a mask, wear it. If it's not, don't. But this back and forth is spilling over to the children. We've listened to two tonight being bullied. This is ridiculous. We're the adults in the room, and we're not acting like it, people. Okay? This is Prosper. This is the community that we live in, and we all love Prosper, and we love our schools. So there's no reason for this ugliness between each other, and we're not going to get anywhere with it. We all need to just be quiet for a minute and listen, and try to have a little bit of empathy for the other person on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Samantha Kim, Ms. Wecker, I guess, Kevin Lee, and Andy Collard.
Good evening. My name is Samantha Kim, and my address is in the record. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Prosper Citizen Group PAC. First, we would like to thank the district and the board for the amazing start to this 2021-22 school year. It's been wonderful to see so many happy and excited faces of students, staff, and administration on our campuses. So we thank you for making that possible. Secondly, we would like to address agenda item number 8, virtual technology. While we are pleased to see this on the agenda, however, no information was available for review prior to this meeting. This makes it very difficult for public comment and for us to provide any sort of constructive comments or feedback. We would respectfully request that the board either allow for further public comment after the presentation by PISD, staff, or delay any action until the next hearing. Lastly, we would like to address agenda item number 9. We appreciate the board starting the school year, providing families with a choice. This is a decision that we strongly support. However,
Thank you, Ms. Kim.
thank you.
Can you tell me how to pronounce your name?
Hooker,
Okay, what's your first name? Is it
It's Carista.
Carista? Thank you.
So I'm just here to remind you guys that on May 18th of 2021, Governor Greg Abbott issued an executive order which prohibits government entities, which includes school districts, from requiring mandating a mask. Public schools were able to continue that through June 4th, but after that, no student, teacher, parent, or other staff member or visitor can be required to wear a mask. I'm also here to remind you that if you follow the money, not the big corrupt pharma or big government that seeks to manipulate, control, and warp the innocence of the kids, it's our job to fight for their freedoms. I'm not even a parent, and I'm here fighting for their kids because I can see, if you look around me, they're all here to fight for their kids' right to choose. That's all we're trying to do. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. But if you don't, that shouldn't be a decision that you guys get to make. It's their kids, and it's their kids' lives that they're responsible for, not you. So you guys should be able to give them the choice. Thank you.
Kevin Lee, Andy Collard, Sabrina Taylor, and then Paul Klein. Please, Mr. Lee.
April 17, 2021, my mom, Quang Kim Lee, at the age of 66, a Vietnamese immigrant who was a survivor of a brutal war and lived to experience the American dream, a total, died in her hospital bed of COVID. A year before that, she called saying she was really scared of it all and was doing everything she could. She masked up, staying in, socially distancing, doing everything that the so-called experts told her to do. I told her she'd be okay as long as she followed their advice and kept doing what she was doing. Ultimately, I lied. In fact, we were all lied to. And today we're being lied to again, that in order to protect the children and the faculty, that the children have to wear masks. Rather than focusing on promoting healthy immune systems, we're pushing masks that could barely protect you from smelling a fart. So no on the mask mandate, for the sake of the children, for the sake of the community, and for the sake of my mother's legacy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Andy Collard.
Hi, my name is Andy Collard, and I want to ask the question, what is science? Because we hear the word science a lot today. Science is about questioning, observing, testing, and getting evidence to conclusion. Science now it says that your biological anatomy is a choice. So what kind of science can we actually trust these days when the medical establishment decides that your autonomy and your biological makeup is up for discussion and question and whatever? When I hear about CRT in the schools, and when I hear that students are being made to talk about gender pronouns, are you kidding me? And now I want to say, I'm going to bare my soul here. I'm a former LGBT, okay? God has saved me from that. He allowed me to see my identity, which was look at women as my sisters and men as my brothers. And through a 2-year period, God saved me and made me celibate. And then I'm married 10 years now with 3 beautiful children.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you. Sabrina Taylor, Paul Klein, Bennett Hamilton, please. Hello.
I would like to donate my minute to Weaver, if I could.
To
Gary Weaver.
Okay. Well, no, we're not gonna donate minutes, so you can talk for a minute if you'd like. Oh, kids. Yeah, but that's just so you would cut the time down. I would give you 2 minutes. Yeah.
serious risk because that's how they make you do it. It's not true. Masks don't work. Randomized controlled tests.
Thank you, Mr. Klein.
demonstrated that.
Thank you. Thank you. Bennett Hamilton, Carrie Weaver, and then Katie Wynn, I think. Bennett Hamilton.
Thank you. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. I'm anti-mask. But one topic that was briefly discussed earlier that hasn't been discussed a whole lot is one of the reasons we moved to this district is because of the special education program. You guys have a really good program here. We have a child who's autistic, much like I'm sure a lot of the parents in this room. He receives speech therapy, occupational therapy through the district from somebody wearing a mask. It's impossible for him to learn how to speak correctly from somebody when he cannot see their mouth. We have a kindergartner who is learning how to read. He's learning how to enunciate words properly. He cannot do that properly from somebody wearing a mask. I believe in choice. I believe it is somebody's choice to do what they need to do, but we have to come up with another solution for these kids that are trying to overcome some of their issues that they have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Carrie Weaver. There you are.
Hi, Article 1 of the Texas Constitution contains what is referred to as our great state's Bill of Rights, with those rights declared so that, and I quote, the general, great, and essential principles of liberty and free government may be recognized and established. Liberty is defined as the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. Patrick Henry is famously quoted as saying, give me liberty or give me death. Thankfully, that's not a decision that you need to make for the students and staff of Prosper ISD. Even the CDC numbers back that up. Instead, you can continue to recognize that the students and staff of Prosper ISD have the right to liberty, while they continue to have the right to make their own decisions about wearing masks. Thank you for honoring that right at this time, and I wish that you continue to honor that moving forward.
Katie Wynn? Yoon, sorry, I apologize. I'm trying. Katie Yoon. Ewan, all right, Katie Ewan.
I just want to start by saying, just because you can be loud does not mean that you are correct. On behalf of the immune compromised, for which I am a member, those who believe in science, and those willing to commit to a minor inconvenience for the overall greater good, I'm asking you to reinstate protocols on social distancing and eliminate switching classrooms for elementary age students. Eliminate large group settings and assemblies for all schools. Reinstate the district-wide COVID dashboards so we can track cases daily. Reinstate teacher-led virtual options so our most vulnerable families, for which I am a member, have a choice. Mandate masking in class. The board should adopt the recommendations of the American Academy of Pediatrics, the physicians at Children's Hospital, the physicians of Cook's Hospital, Cook Children's Hospital, and the CDC's recommendations to keep students, teachers, families, and our community members safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ewan. Thank you. I got behind. Morgan Grahavec, Miranda Stockhausen, Sheldon Pearson, and Debbie Lindstrom. Please.
Hi, I'm Dr. Grahovec. I'm here to request that Prosper ISD be more proactive in mitigating the spread of COVID in order to keep staff, students, and their families safe and help the schools stay open. Why should you listen to me? I would actually argue that you should not, because I'm just one person. It's not helpful to listen to the advice of everyone today who is not an expert in epidemiology. Instead, you should listen to the actual experts about this pandemic, including the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Please.
I'm gonna add time. And, the American College of Physicians and the American Academy of Pediatrics, who unanimously agree that masks should be worn in school settings, contact tracing should be performed, and physical distancing should be practiced to the greatest extent possible. Also, please reinstate the COVID dashboard so we can make informed decisions about our children's safety. Remember that public health, by definition, is never a personal choice. Prosper ISD was a leader last year. Please continue to be one.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor. Miranda Stockhausen, please.
Hi, I'm Miranda Stockhausen. My address is public record. I also moved here for the special education at Prosper ISD because it is one of the best. My kid is way behind in speech and has been in speech therapy since he was 2. He's doing just fine. Speech therapist wears a mask, it's see-through, he's still learning, moving forward, being educated, just fine with all the protections in place. That's why we have plexiglass, that's why we have face masks that you can see through. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Sheldon Pearson, Debbie Lindstrom, Dane Douglas, and, this is good, Christy Zukovich? Sheldon Pearson.
You ready?
Yes, sir. Go.
Good evening. My name is Sheldon Pearson. The responsibility of the ISD is to represent all students, right? Protect students, create a learning environment. There's a lot of discussion about liberty and freedom. When I was in school, school's like a jail. You guys take away liberties and freedoms all the time, right? Look at the dress code. You can't wear spaghetti straps. I can't wear a t-shirt with a marijuana leaf on it. The faculty is trained to enforce the dress code, and masks should be part of the dress code. Based on this, the ISD...
Please, audience, please, let's give the guy the... Thank you.
The ISD also knows that vaccines work because they mandate number of vaccines for kids of all age ranges. They know how illness spreads, and they know it's necessary for public health. The Pfizer vaccine was approved today, and it should be mandatory for all participants that it's eligible for. This has nothing to do with liberty. I mean, people have been, where have they been for the last 100 years about liberty? What it's really about is creating an environment where the ISD can no longer function as a governing body. This rhetoric is a roadmap to undermine every future decision of the school board.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Debbie Lindstrom, Dane Douglas, Christy Zukovich.
Hello, I am a 25-year resident within Prosper ISD, and I would like to commend you on your recent decision to make masks optional for students in the coming school year. I'm not here to argue if masks are effective or not. My argument is that doctors have found provable adverse effects from mask wearing for all students: decrease in oxygen levels, increased levels of carbon dioxide in the blood. Masks are a breeding ground for germs if they become moist or are used too long. Learning is hindered due to an inability to read facial expressions, lips, and nonverbal cues. Because of this, I don't think that the board should make a unilateral mask mandate because mask wearing affects all students to varying degrees. Does the perceived benefit to keep one child safe when they have over a 99% chance of survival allow the school to do real harm to other children? I think not. Therefore, I encourage you to continue to allow parents to make the choice for what's best for their child.
Thank you. Dane Douglas.
This is Chrissy Zukovich.
Oh, where's Dane Douglas?
I'm GOP Precinct Chair 1043. I've become aware that when we accept federal money, we become beholden to the federal government and what they want and mandate for our district. I do know that we took federal money before COVID even happened. And I know that we hired Creative Energies, who has Dr. Kim McLeod, and she it's basically CRT, but in a different outfit. And I'm just wondering, I want to be solution-based. You guys have my phone number and my email. I want to know what the parents have to do to make sure we don't need any federal money. Like, I want to be solution-based, and I'm really excited that you guys serve us, because that's exactly what you guys do, and I want to thank you so much. I've researched all of you, and like most of you, I'm so glad that you're there. And I'm excited and grateful, and I'll be here every month, and I've requested the in-service training materials that Dr. McLeod provided for the principals and the teachers. And Texas Education Code 26.006, I can have those. I can have that information, and I've already requested it.
Thank you very much.
Formally online.
Chrissy Zukovich.
And that's a hard one to follow. Anyway, so I just want to tell my story under a minute. I came out here in November, just my daughter and I, and we chose Prosper because it was the best school district in the area. So 3 days after Christmas, I loaded up my sedan, and me and my daughter drove here, and on January 6th, she started school. And it was hard for her. She did not have that many friends. She's really sweet, she's really nice, and she met nobody. And every day I picked her up and she just would bark at me of how upset she was, and she didn't talk to anybody all day. Now fast forward to just last week, how was your day? I met 7 friends in geometry, I met 4 here, I have 3 new friends at lunch. Not wearing a mask made a world of difference. Like, it's a different child that I'm picking up. So I really hope you guys continue doing what you say you're gonna do and not doing it to the kids. I mean, it really, she's in 10th grade. I mean, she's got 2.5 years left, and that's it. So it's not just the little kids that it affects, it really does affect the older kids too. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I got behind again. Vamshi Gundu, Dr. Rajeshwasi Sarpath, Sindhu Vijay, I'm sorry, that lives on Packhorse Drive, and Suma Bala, those 4. Do we have Vamshi Gundu? Anybody? Anybody know if he or she is in the other room, perhaps? Okay, is Tracy? Okay, all right. We will. We will. Are any of these other people here? Dr. Rajeshwasi Sampath lives on Golid Trail. Sindhu. Okay, there you go. What's your name?
Yeah, Vamshi. Yeah, good evening, everyone. I am Vamshi, parent of 2 kids, and I am one of the worried parents among hundreds of others standing outside the room. We know that COVID virus is very contagious and with uncertain recovery times, and sometimes it is life-threatening. We have seen a couple of cases where some kids got passed away, and we have seen a small mistake by a kid could cost us dear. In order to keep the children safe and provide equal access to quality education, we request you all provide the parents a teacher-led virtual school option for kids under the age of 12 until they are fully vaccinated. If there is a will, there is a way. We parents are open to increased teacher-to-student ratio per class, or we are ready to take additional responsibility as a learning coach, and even we want to volunteer to support the teachers. We are also open to have a teacher-led virtual school option at the ISD level. In this model, ISD can group students from each grade across different schools and provide teacher-led instruction. This will be a win-win situation for both parents and ISD. We are in challenging times.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. Can you tell me your name? I'll just make sure I get that list right.
Vamshi Gundu.
There you go. Thank you, Mr. Gundu. Thank you. Okay. Next is Dr. Rajeshwasi Sarpath. I get that right? Close? Sorry.
Can I start?
Yeah, can you speak into the microphone? Thank you.
Thank you. I am Dr. Rajeshwari Sampath and my kid goes to Hughes Elementary. Let me start with the many of our favorite math concept, probability. We always teach our kids that there can be probability of success or failure in your life. But when it comes to the probability of our kids being safe versus being infected, we as parents of unvaccinated kids cannot teach them. Even if you're infected with COVID-19, there is no issue because 30% of healthy people who were reported COVID-19 in 2020 have developed long-term neurological problems. Just to give stats, during the first week of Prosper ISD school, there are 22 cases as of August 13. They increased to 80 cases by August 17 and almost doubled by August 20. Till now, we have more than 178 kids and staff that are COVID positive, and this will continue to worsen until the ISD board members take definite measures to control the spread. As the COVID cases are increasing exponentially, parents would like to know what's the threshold Prosper ISD would decide to take the right actions. We are Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
your time.
Doctor. Sindhu Vijay, how do you say? I'm sorry. How do you say your last name?
Vijayana.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sindhu, and thank you all the board members and Dr. Ferguson for giving me this opportunity. I'm the parent of a kindergartner and yet to be vaccinated 7th grader. I also thank all the other parents here, requesting for a teacher-led virtual option. Also, in case the decision you make is not in our favor, yes, we will be heartbroken and our kids will know that their parents lost the battle. But we're human beings, we will adapt, we'll choose other paths like homeschooling or virtual public schools. But will it be the same as learning from the school that they believed would be theirs? My 5-year-old, who was eagerly waiting for kindergarten this year, is extremely disappointed he can't go to school like his friend next door. But he still is hopeful that he will still have Miss Green as his teacher, waving to him every day and teaching him online from the other side of the laptop. Please do consider virtual learning option. Somebody said about right to choose masks, no masks. We are not even getting into that debate. So all I would want to ask is if they can have a choice, why
Thank
not
you,
us?
Sindhu.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Suma Bala, please.
Hi, good evening. I am amongst thousands of parents who are rooting for a teacher-led virtual option. I am gathered here to request you to provide us with options, in-person or teacher-led virtual option. Allow us as parents to choose what is safe for our kids. We live in a country where education is not a privilege but a right. We are currently forced to send our kids to school and denying them the right to education. The amount of emotional trauma we are putting ourselves and our kids is unnecessary. I appeal and urge this influential committee before me. Education is for improving the lives of others and for leaving our community and the world better than we found it. Let's be the change. Let's make it happen. Let's go virtual. If other ISDs can go virtual, so can Prosper ISD. Please give us the option to choose what is safest for our kids. We're not asking or debating various other topics. It's just giving us the option, and I think we have the right to go ahead and ask you to do so. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Two more. Tom Vars and Adriana Mendez, please.
Hey guys, I'm Tom Vars. And, well, I voted for many of you here, and so I just felt like I was compelled to come out and not necessarily echo what everybody else is kind of saying, but that I support you in office and I support your decisions. And I do want to say that I am with the group that hopes that you don't enforce dress code policies, making masks not permittable. We want to have masks allowed. We don't want to force them, but if people want to wear them, we want to let that happen. And so I just felt compelled to, be one of the people that actually, there's a lot involved with taking a vote. When I vote for you guys, it goes two ways. Hey, we support you. Hey, this is what we want to do. So hopefully, I'm just another guy.
Thank you, Mr. Vars. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Adriana Mendez. You may just get close. Can you get a little bit closer to the mic? Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes a difference.
I'll give you.
Now I can hear myself. I have a bachelor's of science in bachelor of science in communication, and I'm a former physical ISD teacher. We moved from Frisco because they were saying a lot of great things about Prosper, and I'm a bit disappointed. I'm sorry, I'm so nervous.
No,
I am
don't be
a
nervous.
bit disappointed of the division here, and it's really, really disappointing. I had a different speech, but since I had to change it, since I heard some comments that really not upset me, but concerned me. So,
We'll give you another couple of seconds because your mic was off, so go ahead.
okay, thank you. I don't think I'm sorry. I don't think there's calling mandates when it comes to protect our health, and especially the ones of our children. So if you guys move from another state, welcome home.
This is a great
Thank you. I
state.
think that our time is up, Ms. Mendez.
Okay, please let me finish.
No,
3
I'm sorry. I'm
seconds.
trying to be very fair to everybody. Sorry. Thank you. Everybody got a minute.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is the end of our list.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll move on into consent agenda then.
No, we still have the 8 and 9.
Yes, we do. Okay, so number 8, follow up on technology research and online meeting options.
So we met with our IT group. Fernando, thank you very much for presenting some options on how we could do online meeting. We've talked about it through different options. I don't, at this point, feel a need to try to do anything more with that. I feel like the people that have attended this meeting have taken great pains to be here, and I'm thankful that they have made the time to come express their opinions, and I don't want to dishonor anyone else or dishonor their commitment by taking comments from the outside that we don't have a way of understanding who they are, or maybe even cutting some people short. That we're up here serious enough to attend. Does anybody have any more thoughts on that session? On those? More comments? Okay. So that's not an action item. I appreciate the interest in having online meeting, having people have the ability to comment online, but I think it's important that, and I think we've proven by the turnout tonight, that if people have an interest in hearing and speaking to their school board, they will do so. And so I think we honor that. And we do, yeah, we continue to have a live link for them to listen to the meeting. That's correct. So we're not going to move forward on that as an agenda item. And it wasn't a voting item anyway. And then let's go ahead and hear from on item number 9, the Prosper Board of Trustees COVID Subcommittee met. And that, why don't you go ahead, Bill?
Yeah, thank you. On Monday, the 16th, the COVID Subcommittee met. Thank you. That is made up of myself, Ms. Smith, and Mr. Wilbur. Met here at the admin building with Dr. Ferguson and Mr. Crownover and Nurse Geisy to review and discuss what is currently happening with the COVID-19 virus, as well as our protocols. At no point in time in that meeting was a mask mandate advised for Prosper ISD. Allow me to say that again. At no point in that meeting was a mask mandate advised for Prosper ISD for the wearing of students or teachers. Let's see, excuse me, I lost my place. We discussed what measures are currently in place to ensure our students continue to receive an outstanding in-person educational experience, which we believe is the best way for our students to learn. We also discussed any changes that we feel might be need to make moving forward. As a reminder, in the April board meeting, here in this very room, we laid out a plan for the 2021-2022 school year, and that plan was for Prosper ISD to be mask optional. That plan has not changed. With that being said, Dr. Ferguson, can you please walk us through some of the protocols for this year and some of the changes that we've seen at the campus level?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a different ball game than what we were dealing with last year, as many of you are well aware, depending on no matter where you are on this issue. There was contact tracing in place last year. There were notifications going out constantly. Kids were masked, desks separated as far as we could get them apart. And so the environment looked very different than any of us had ever imagined that it would look like. And then we had obviously about 5,000 students who were sitting in virtual learning. One of the things that we learned after the STAR testing, which is our state assessment, is that there was learning loss for students. And luckily in Prosper ISD, we have very supportive parents and kids who learn at high levels, but it didn't mean that we didn't experience some level of learning loss as well, and specifically in the area of math when we look at our data. And that happened across the state, even at the state level. But obviously we fared much better than at the region or the state level. So one of the things that we talked about is the greatest opportunity for us to educate our students is to have them in person, because we've learned once again that no one can replace the power of the teacher in the classroom with those students. And when you start looking at our younger students and that early emerging reader, it's extremely, extremely difficult to teach phonetics and sight words and all of those things that we know that our students need at that very foundational level, as well as the assessments and things that we were not able to perform through a computer screen. We needed to be able to have those students in front of us so that we could diagnose exactly what it is that they needed. So now flash forward into this school year. One thing that we consistently did last year is that the governor did say that there was a mask mandate, and we followed that all the way until March. And I know that March was extremely rough time for all of us, no matter where you were on this issue and what you thought about things. But what you all are not seeing, and we never would want you to see, is all of the different moving parts that we have and the amount of juggling that had happened with our students. So when we are committed to making sure that our kids are learning at high levels, and we keep having them pop in and out of a classroom, in and out of instruction, and in and out of going to different teachers, that was not conducive to learning. And what we stand for and what we're in the business of is making sure that your children are educated at high levels. And so in many instances, we felt that we were falling short for you as a community on what you were paying your taxes for and why you chose Prosper ISD. So when the governor said lift the mask mandate as soon as the last day of school came about, and I know our board in April of 2021 said that masks would be optional, and so we made that move as soon as that graduation happened. You would see that many of our districts around us were not offering proms, they were not offering graduations in person. There were a lot of different things that were happening. The one thing, though, that Prosper ISD stayed committed to is making sure that we were trying to hold on to as many moments as we possibly could to have those students have those moments, because so many things had been stolen from these kiddos. And so we stayed committed to that. We were successful through that. Several of the superintendents even said, "What are you doing in Prosper for a prom?" And I said, "Well, we're having a prom." That's what we're doing because our kids need that moment and they need the opportunity. And so we did, and it was highly successful. And now here we are, and we're rolling into this school year. We're following the guidelines by the governor, as Mr. Beavers just mentioned. But we have to also look constantly at the data. We cannot just turn a blind eye to what's happening. And so I understand that when you see one campus and you see 2 cases, know that what we're looking at is what is happening K-12 across this entire district. And we have to take action on that. And so that became, out of the COVID subcommittee, is that we would have a stronger stance in our communication to remind everyone of the importance. But never, ever was the intent to have a mask mandate to come back into play. And I appreciate all of you that have come out tonight to share your concerns. But the problem is that social media sometimes takes us on a path of not the real truth. And so that never was. And if you'd read the communication thoroughly, as I know many of you did because you've emailed and said this was stated in the communication, never did it say that we were moving back to a mask mandate. We were only tightening up measures because, as you all know, we serve a vast community. People came tonight to speak from their heart about what their concerns were. And we all have fears, no matter what those fears are, whether the fears are going back to a mask or the fears are that we would have virtual learning, whatever it might be that someone feels that they need. And I want to applaud the efforts of this school board because they continue to show up, they continue to serve, they continue to give their absolute best for every single student, all 21,173 of them. And they also give their best to 2,600 plus employees. And they're trying to give their absolute best to you. And so I rally around these individuals who are servant leaders who continue to forge ahead with insight and care and compassion, even though I know some may not think that about them. They do. They don't earn a dime for sitting and doing this work or to hear about what people think about them. But I am here to tell you that through this COVID subcommittee work, we would not be doing our due diligence if we were not having ongoing conversations about the health and safety of our kids. And so that's what we committed to, is that we would talk about the health and safety of our kids. But in no way, shape, or form did that ever turn into a mask mandate. But it did turn into, are there things that we could do to better serve our families in Prosper ISD? And that's exactly what the COVID subcommittee landed on.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Ferguson. Thank you.
Any questions?
Well, Dr. Ferguson, one of the things is if you can talk through a little more on the reporting of numbers that's changed from last year to
Yes.
this year. I think a good explanation for people just to hear from us.
Absolutely. So last year, many of you have said, well, we had the COVID dashboard for the whole entire district, and we did. And if you have a high level of concern, if you're looking about what's happening across the district, it only created this alarm factor with families. And so what we decided is that we would provide those dashboards for the individual campus. So then that way, if you were sitting in the camp of, I'm fine with my kid, I'm fine with the situation, you never had to tap into that link. But if you wanted to know what was happening, then we would provide that information to you. We adjusted out of the COVID subcommittee to provide percentages so you would know what does that look like, because we have varying numbers on each of our campuses, but also giving the teacher's name of where that exposure occurred. At the elementary, that's next to impossible when you get into the secondary world and you have kids moving all over to all different classrooms. And so we made those adjustments, and you should have seen those on Friday with our update if you got onto your COVID notification website link.
You had also talked about virtual learning, some of the challenges that we have come up against just last year, but then also this board is responsible for the budget, as we discussed tonight. Some of the difficulties surrounding that this year. Can you expand on that a little bit for us?
Absolutely. So I know that obviously Ms. Fulmer did a great job of presenting the preliminary budget in the budget hearing, but many of the districts around us, neighbors to us, they were able to get more funding than we did through federal relief money. And with the federal relief money that we received, we would only be able to hire about 7 teachers, and that's 7 teachers with salaries and benefits. If I look at the data from last year, we had 108 teachers who were teaching fully virtual in an elementary setting, 108, and I have enough money for 7. So you can see where that challenge comes. And then you also have to look at this fast growth that we have. Many of you mentioned it tonight. You moved here because of the school district, and I love that because this is a fabulous school district. I've had my own kids here for years, and I love this place and what it does and the educators that we have. But right now, our classrooms are sitting 22, 23, 24. We have waivers that are sitting on the agenda tonight, and our classrooms are packed. And so if I start pulling teachers, that means I'm going to pull them away from kids who have already formed a relationship with the teacher. I don't have extra teachers sitting in the wings because that wouldn't be being a good steward of your funds as taxpayers if I just had teachers waiting, ready to go. You might wonder, well, why is that? Why in the world could we pull it off last year? We were getting direction from the state prior to school opening, and so that meant that we could shuffle and move teachers one way or the other, and literally it was down to the wire that we were saying, hey teacher, want to let you know you're going to be a virtual teacher this year because school hadn't started, so we were able to assign kids. We're already in the throes of the school year. If we make those adjustments, which I'll be honest, we don't have the wiggle room to pull teachers to make them virtual because our numbers right now, they've got a full class. And I don't think there's anyone in here that started with us on August 11th that your child is sitting in a classroom with a teacher that you'd be super happy with me if I said, by the way, I want to let you know you're going to lose your teacher because she's going to virtual, and so all these 22 kids sitting in this elementary classroom aren't going to have the teacher that they were assigned. I know that that would not go well. At all. We're looking at about $24,000 or $24 million that this would cost for us to be able to make this happen. And as we've already shared tonight and you've heard, the state didn't fund this, so $24 million coming out of our general fund, which are your tax dollars.
Talk a little bit about what we expect to see out of the Senate tomorrow, maybe?
So the Senate, we do have a quorum, and so Senate Bill 15 is sitting on the table for them to take action on, and it is revolving around virtual learning. And so if the state comes through with funding, then we'll make sure that we get those things in place. There is no guarantee, though, because I've already mentioned that it would be a Prosper ISD teacher, because right now my Prosper ISD teachers are hired, and after this past year and the disruption that has occurred in our nation, not just in Prosper ISD, teachers have left the profession. Some of our absolute best have walked out the door, and there was no way to keep them. They've chosen to get out of education. And it's heartbreaking because I know that our students will not get those teachers back. And so who I am left with, who might even be someone that I could hire, I would tell you right now, probably would not meet the standard of what you're expecting as taxpayers and as parents for what you have come to know and love in our district.
Other questions out of the subcommittee?
I have a question just having to do with many of us on social media, on Facebook and whatever other sources, have been sent pictures of passing periods in middle schools and high schools. I'm sure many of you have seen those, where it appears to be and is very crowded. Can you speak to that?
Actually, not very crowded because
I know, that's why I'm
there was
asking
a
you to
school
speak to
year
that.
of 2019-2020 when we were running 4,100 students in PHS, and you want to talk about taking your life in your own hands. When a bell rang, that was the moment you were like up against the wall trying to keep from being tackled or stepped on. Obviously, we had great kids, and so we didn't have a lot of discipline issues because we've got great parents who are going to support us if anything came out of that. The 3,200 students that we currently have at PHS, 2,400 students sitting over at Rock Hill High School. What we've learned about COVID is that the close contact measure is 15 minutes of close contact in a given area for a consistent amount of time. When you're in a passing period, you're moving, they're hustling. And so the fact that they would come up with potentially getting COVID by passing in the hallway, there's actually a pretty slim chance. I'm not gonna say that it couldn't happen because I will remind everyone I'm an educator. I'm not a doctor, nor am I a politician, although some might disagree with that. I'm not either one of those. But where they're going to get it is sitting in a classroom. Now, if some child sneezes on them in the hallway, probably going to get it if they're COVID positive. But the likelihood with the packed hallways is actually pretty slim because the kids are moving and they're flowing through the hallways. Just like it would be if you were at a grocery store or the mall or anywhere else, church.
And that 15 minutes is the CDC's guideline on that.
Correct.
That's what they said. Yeah, that was.
What else? Other questions? Anything, Deb?
No, just, we're gonna post on 2 days, right? It's Tuesdays and Fridays, so the parents will know.
Tuesdays and Fridays, please be patient with us. As you can imagine, our nurses, I'm just hoping that they don't walk out. What they have experienced just even within the 2 weeks that we've been in school has been nothing short of a burden, not because of the kids, but because of the emails, the close contact, the questions, and certainly we're glad to answer those. I talked to Nurse Gazzi the other day asking for an update, and she said, Dr. Ferguson, I'm about 100 emails deep, and I'll get to it as fast as I possibly can. If she's 100 emails deep, that means that your campus nurses are also knee deep in emails, and they're trying their absolute best to serve you and to get back, but know that they are overworked, that there's not enough time in the day as they're looking at these things. So I would ask for grace on sending multiple emails. If you've sent one, just be patient to get that response back and don't send 3 or 4 more because it slows down the process to get back to you. They're trying to do the absolute best that they can. We have to remember too, we have medically fragile kids in the schools. We have students with diabetes who also need our care. So please be aware when you're asking about those COVID things that we have multiple things going on also as far as the medical needs for our students and staff.
Great, thank you. Other questions, comments?
Last thing was, Dr. Ferguson, we heard it from both sides of the argument tonight. Thank you for everything so far this year. You got the plane taken off for us yet again in a difficult situation. So thank you for everything that you and
Thank you. I would like to say no matter what you think about me or the school district, this is my qualifier. If you're happy with the education that's happening with your child and with your teacher, stick with us. This is an amazing place to be, and know that I will stay committed to giving our absolute best in this district, 100%.
Thank you, Dr. Ferguson. Okay, we can move into the consent agenda. I think we've all seen in the packet the prior minutes from the meetings. We've all seen the enrollment update.
I don't know if you want to tick through the construction update. I don't think we need to spend any time on. There we go.
Yes, so we've made our transition. Here's the work completed and a little bit ongoing at Mike and Janie Reeves. Obviously, the building is open and fully functioning, but there's few detailed pieces that we have to work on to get it to that final stage. I'll give everybody a minute to leave. Thank you for coming tonight. Those of you who've been standing, if you'd like a seat, please feel free to take one.
Okay.
Okay, Mike and Janie Reeves, and then we will skip over. Beautiful building, absolutely outstanding ribbon cutting, great celebration of the family, and the students are thriving and having a great time. We have elementary school number 15, which will be our next school to open in August of 2022, and it's located in the Star Trail subdivision. You can see it's dirt right now.
Moving dirt, though.
It's dirt, yeah. But that's the beginning stages, and soon enough, we will have
Yeah, when are we going
ready
to change
go.
that heading of that report to not Prosper High School number 3? But
That's right. This is Walnut Grove High School now, home of the Wildcats, and the navy and silver will be emblazoned. We had a great groundbreaking at that high school and drove by there just this week, and they are hustling.
Good, good. Okay, we have the cooperative management fee report, which I think we've all seen. I don't think that's particularly
It's kind of a
material.
standard
Yeah.
operating procedure for us during the August meeting, certainly by board. Is there anything that the finance department, business department would like to add in? Pretty clear cut. Okay, just need a motion then on that.
Yeah, why don't we get all of the, let's get the whole
Okay.
consent agenda in one fell swoop. Can we do that?
Yes,
Yep.
budget amendments, so this is the time, because we're starting to close out our budget from last year, so these are the budget amendments that we have, and then we'll be moving into the budget that Ms. Fulmer presented.
And will we have more budget amendments next? Did I see that for September? No? Is this it? I'm sorry.
No, thank you, because I wanted to also draft the fact that it says draft on it. It was, we do give a preliminary before the payroll is run, and then we make sure that we run the budget
Okay.
amendment after payroll. So the draft will come off. It's in your packet with that word on it. So this is the only budget amendment for August, and then the next one that you will see will either be in September or October. Traditionally in Prosper, we don't need budget amendment. They're fairly rare.
Right.
And so, yeah, we'll do one to get those copiers moved into the out of function 11 in September.
Okay, great, thank you. Good. And then we had the update 117, the massive update.
Yes, so this came out of the
117.
87th legislative session, so whenever that session closes out, we'll have another update, update 118, which will probably come around November because of the special session items, and so we'll get another round of policy changes based on those changes that come out of this special session. But right now, we have update 117. Many of these things took place and were put in place by September 1, so our timeline is ticking.
Now, we all had a chance to look at that. Any questions or comments on that update 117 from TASB? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Deb. A second?
Second.
Bill, all in favor? Okay, great, wonderful, thank you.
Okay, let's move into education. So we need to, this is another thing, housekeeping that we need to take care of. So this is our action on all of our approval for our Texas Teacher Evaluation Support System. So our administrators, myself, we go through training to be able to appraise our teachers using what is called the T-TEST evaluation instrument for our teachers and staff. Professional teachers, I should say. Any questions?
No, this is the list.
Okay,
There you
and
go.
then this is the
Right.
list of approved appraisers,
Right.
which will be your assistant principals, and then a few district appraisers.
Do you need a motion on 11A? Jana, second? Okay, Kelly, all in favor?
Okay, so our campus improvement plans and district improvement plans, reminder as a board, you're approving the 7 goals. There's some flexibility for those campuses then to figure out exactly how are we going to go about addressing these goals. The goals that are sitting at the district level then level goals too. So there's a lot of Tide just being very seamless in our approach on what we're doing with those. And so what I've provided to you and certainly to the public is all of the narratives for 20 campuses plus the district improvement plan. So you can see probably a lot of similarity, right? Which, as it should be, because if we're philosophically doing what we're supposed to, we should see some of the same exact programs and plans being put in place.
Very good. Comments or questions on 11B? Very thorough. That was the biggest part of the packet, I think. So then I'll need a motion to approve the 11B. Thank you, Jana. Second? Deb, all in favor?
Okay, we have our consideration and possible action on our class size waivers, just for those in the public. Kindergarten through fourth grade in the state of Texas is a 22-to-1 ratio. Obviously, our fast growth, sometimes that's very hard to know exactly where we're going to be, even though our demographer does a great job with that, and sometimes with the spike in third grade setting, but maybe not in first grade. Right now, inside of your packet, you have a spreadsheet, and it gives you the campuses. We have a total of 36 waivers that we're looking at, and those are at Johnson, Light Farms, Spradley, Winsong Ranch, Reeves, Johnson, Light Farms, Rucker. Is actually
Questions on that?
We've got the teacher names too, and then their numbers of how many are in their classes currently that could have changed today. It's early. It is early in this year.
The biggest is
Yes.
all right. Comments or questions about that? Hearing none. 11C, any motion? Bill, second. Oh, Dina. All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you. We're looking at the financials for the fiscal year through July 31st. Looking at the investment portfolio, we have a total of $211 million for all funds ended July 31st compared to $202 million this time last year. The general fund is $126 million, represents 59% of the overall portfolio. If we look at our benchmark performance, we're 0.06% for our overall weighted average yield, which is the same as prior month. It went down a little bit from prior month, so the fact that it's holding steady is good news for us. This shows all the financial institutions. If we look at the Texas Term fixed rate product, we had a maturity last week of $5 million. We reinvested that into a 265-day long-term maturity for the school district general operating funds. That gives us a little bit longer, barely any days to maturity of 7 days. So the 0.08, previously that rate was 0.15. We had it for a little bit longer. Just these little bits just try to help us fight this the very, very low rate as far as earning and supporting the general operating fund. Investment comparison by funds, total general fund, only $129 million last year, 126 this year, percent decrease 2.4, which is right where we would expect it to be. Okay, going into revenue for general operating funds. For the general fund, we've received $183 million year to date. Budgeted revenue, $178 million, collected $183, complete for the year, 102.7%. Remember, we had 400 students that we received above what was projected for the budget. Looking at tax collections, September to July, the percent of original levy collected for this year is 100.2%. So that's right where we would expect it to be. When we look at the line, it's tracking very nicely. Tax rate compression is in play here. as we see the overlay for year over year. And rollback collections slightly increased towards the end of the year. We're almost at $2.1 million since September. Expenditures by object general fund only, $161 million year to date. Another way to look at this, again, budgeted expenditures for last year, $192 million. Total for the year, $161. Percent complete, 83.7%. Switching to the athletics fund, net cash flow for the year is $121,000. Food service as well. Last year this time, we had stopped serving, so that's why the large deficit prior year, but very strong cash flow this year. Since we changed contracts, we did not have a billing for July. That really helped with performance of the fund overall. And debt service fund, through July 31st, $19 million. Of course, the debt payments are made in August. Looking up Reeves, we've really completed that project. 94.4% of expenses year to date. 97.2% of Bryan. The campus is already completed. These is for teenage and residual bills that come through. Well, those will continue to trickle in. Starting in Newman, elementary 15, 1% of expenses. They're breaking ground on that. And Walnut Grove, only contract $200 million. We expect to see this coming in the next few months. That concludes our presentation. Thanks.
Thank you. Questions on the financial investment tax report? Not, I'll entertain a motion to approve that. Auction items. So, an interesting list of auction.
It's time to do housekeeping.
Tubas, woodwinds, lift gates, restaurants.
Library shelving, don't forget that.
Yeah.
Any questions about the auction items that?
This comes up every year. Jana usually asks this question. What happens if you don't sell it? What happens if you don't sell it? Oh, you can tell I don't remember. I don't remember the answer.
Do everything we can to auction, particularly that school bus, if you'd like.
Oh, yeah. It's not running?
It's not running, so you're gonna have to tow it. But we auction them in
definitely agreement. So just want to point that out, that tax compression is coming. Doesn't mean that your home value will not be going up, because you are living in one of the best districts in the state of Texas.
Okay, need a motion for the annual budget? Bill, Cecil, Drew, okay, all in favor? Consultants proposal, right?
Yes, for our enterprise resource plan, URP, we've had a team working on this.
Oh, good. I didn't have my paper copy, so I want to make sure. So the school district is in desperate need of a new enterprise resource planning system. That's the system that houses our HR, our business functions, all of our business operations. It's not the student system. Those are separate systems, and they accomplish very different tasks and have very different stakeholders. So our current system is Texas. It's a state program. It's designed for very small school districts, which Prosper ISD was very recently. Very recently. Our really extreme growth has challenged a lot of things in the central office, as far as even our capacity to change systems has been really hampered, because we just didn't have enough staff the last 3 years to even make a change like this. The stability was all we could do, was just hold on to what we had. We're running into the difficulties running payroll, just doing basic functions, because the system just can't handle us. So what we've done is we have a multi-department team, HR, technology, of course, the business office, payroll, and we've interviewed some consultants to help us go through the process of developing an RFP and interviewing companies and selecting a company, and also the implementation. That is a heavy lift, especially, it's like building the airplane while you're flying. We can't miss a beat. And so this is definitely a 2 to 3 year project just to get implemented and change over. And so this action item tonight is just to hire the consultant to begin this process, working with all the departments. It's very much a 2 to 3 year process. We will also, once selection has happened, we'll need to bring back to the board the item to actually purchase the system. So this is separate from the purchase of the system. This is really a 10-year commitment that we're starting right now down the road to get us a new ERP system that will last us for a very, very long time. And Prosper is much bigger than that.
It's long overdue. We have a lot of manual entry, because we're a small district, usually one person trying to do payroll. We're well past that, and so it's creating a lot of inefficiency in work of our people. And although they know that it's going to be a challenge to change, they're all very
Okay, thank you. We need a motion for 12E. Second.
To go into executive session, the motion to go. Got that right? You make a motion? Second. Thank you, Deb. Bill and Deb, all in favor? Okay, thank you. We will be back out to make any decisions that are taken in public. Thank you. Yeah, I don't have my agenda anymore. Thank you. Okay, back out of executive session, we have to take action on professional contract of people to be employed. That's 14A. We have a list of those contracts for approval. Looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you,
to approve
Jana.
the
Second?
contracts.
I'll second. Is that Kelly? Okay. All in favor? Great. We have a agenda item to consider possible action on approval of resignations received.
Make a motion as presented.
Bill? Dina? All in favor? Great. Then when we need to talk about, do you want to walk us through this one?
Yeah, so we had a teacher that abandoned her contract right at the end of August, even though the principal had worked with her
multiple times trying to help her, and then we get down to the 11th hour and she doesn't come through on her contract that she'd already signed. Mr. Crownover, is there anything we need to specifically do on that to make sure?
We sure do. I can give it to him there. Sorry. It's the second time I'm kicked.
That's good. You're good. You're looking good.
Is there any other items?
That's it. That's it.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take your time.
She'll make it. Whenever you're ready.
Yep.
Okay, I move that the board find that Melissa Thetford did not have cause to abandon her contract.
All right. Got a motion? We have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Drew. All in favor? Okay. Dina. Deb. It's getting late. Okay, that's the, I think that's the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Bill. Second, Jana. All in favor? Good night.
Night.